Disclaimer: this content is intended for a mature audience only. Viewer discretion is advised. The room was still, lit only by the soft glow of a bedside lamp. Shadows stretched long across the walls, the kind of shadows that whisper secrets when no one is listening. I remember the way the silence felt between us, not heavy, not cold, but charged, like the calm air before a storm. My husband turned toward me with an expression I couldn't quite read. His eyes held warmth, but there was something else too, something unspoken that tugged at my heart. He reached for my hand, and in that simple gesture, I felt both comfort and a tremor of the unknown. We had been together for years, sharing routines, laughter, and even quiet moments of sorrow. But that night, there was a difference, a subtle shift in the way he looked at me, as though he wanted me to see him not just as the man I had always known, but as someone ready to step into a new kind of truth. "I want to try something different," he whispered, and those words seemed to echo in my chest. Not just different in the way a person might crave novelty, but different in the way a soul longs for renewal. A part of me wanted to ask questions, to guard the safe space we had built together. And yet another part, curious, tender, a little daring, leaned into the mystery of his request. In that moment, I became acutely aware of how fragile and beautiful our love was. Love, after all, is not only about what is familiar. It is about trust, about allowing another person to lead you into places you have never been, with the quiet faith that they will hold you gently once you arrive. My breath quickened, not from fear, but from anticipation, like standing at the edge of a cliff, looking at a horizon I had never seen before. And then he moved closer, his hands steady but his heart racing beneath his chest. I could feel it against my skin, a rhythm of desire and vulnerability intertwined. The world outside the room faded until there was only us, two souls, two bodies, caught between comfort and discovery. But when he finally pushed my legs upward, placing them carefully, deliberately, on his shoulders, the meaning behind his actions became something deeper than I expected. And in that moment, I realized, this was not only about him asking for something new. It was about what we might uncover together. The moment stretched between us, longer than a breath but shorter than a heartbeat. My legs rested where he had placed them, not as a command but as a question, an invitation. His hands lingered at my thighs, steady, reassuring, and yet trembling with a vulnerability he rarely let me see. That was the part that startled me most, not the position, not the physical act, but the unguarded way he looked at me, as though asking, "Will you still trust me if I show you more of who I am?" My husband had always been the one who carried strength with quiet dignity. The kind of man who could walk through a storm without letting the rain touch his voice. And yet, I knew him beyond that mask. I had seen his doubts in the way he sometimes held me longer at night, as though anchoring himself to something solid. I had seen his hope in the way he looked at our life together, as though every ordinary day was a gift. Now, though, there was something unspoken in his gaze. A hunger, yes, but not only of the body. A hunger for closeness deeper than words. For renewal. For proof that our love was not fixed in stone but alive, breathing, changing with us. And me, I was not without my own secrets. I had longed for moments like this, moments where the script of marriage was gently rewritten, where the safety of routine gave way to the thrill of discovery. But I had also feared them. Because with discovery comes risk. What if I failed him in this moment? What if the woman he wanted me to be wasn't the one I truly was? His forehead pressed lightly against mine, his breath uneven, his voice hushed but earnest. "I just want us," he murmured, in a way we've never been before. The lamp's glow softened his features, painting him in gold and shadow, a man both familiar and suddenly mysterious. My heart beat fast, my skin warm with anticipation, and still, I hesitated, hovering in the fragile space between surrender and retreat. Because I knew this wasn't only about a new way of touching. It was about whether love could carry us both past fear, into something uncharted. And as I looked into his eyes, I realized, I was already falling into that unknown. His breath lingered near my cheek, warm and uneven, and yet it was the silence that carried the heaviest weight. Beneath the fragile intimacy of the moment, memories stirred like shadows at the edge of light. I remembered the years when we first fell in love, how fearless we were then, how easily we believed that nothing could touch us. We had built our world with laughter and small promises, with shared coffees at dawn and whispered dreams at night. But time has its way of softening edges. Somewhere between bills, work, and unspoken disappointments, our passion had dulled into routine. Not gone, never gone, but folded neatly away, like a letter left unopened in a drawer. And now, here he was, unfolding it again. Asking me to read aloud what we had both once written in fire. Yet fear clawed gently at me. I thought of the nights he had come home quiet, weighed down by the pressures of a world that demanded more than he had to give. I thought of the times I had hidden my own longings, believing it easier to keep the peace than to ask for more. Had we both been silent too long? Was this request, this moment, his way of reaching through the silence before it consumed us completely? His hand pressed more firmly against my leg, not forceful, but steady, grounding me. His eyes searched mine, asking questions without words. Did I trust him enough to let him lead us into something new? Could he trust me to meet him there without judgment? Inside, a different conflict stirred. I wanted to give myself to him fully, to dissolve into the promise of discovery. But another part of me whispered doubts. What if this changes us? What if I lose the comfort of what we already are? I closed my eyes for a moment, hearing not only his breath but the echo of my own heartbeat. The tension wasn't just physical, it was the pull of two histories colliding, the life we had lived and the one we had yet to claim. When I opened my eyes again, his lips hovered close, his whisper softer than the lamp's glow. I don't want perfection. I just want you. And those words, tender and raw, deepened the conflict inside me. Because part of me wanted to surrender right then. And part of me still stood trembling at the edge of what we might become. His hands didn't move, but the weight of them felt heavier than any embrace we had shared before. My chest rose and fell too quickly, my thoughts tangling in the quiet space between us. It wasn't the position that made my heart race, it was the rawness of what it meant. He wasn't only holding my body, he was holding my trust. His eyes locked onto mine, dark and searching, and I realized he was just as uncertain as I was. The steadiness in his touch was a veil. Beneath it, I saw the man who feared losing me, who feared being unseen. That fear lived in me too. Perhaps we had both been carrying it, silently, letting it grow in the unspoken corners of our marriage. I thought back to a night months ago, when I had caught him staring out the window long after midnight. His shoulders had slumped, his face pale in the moonlight, as if he were wrestling with a storm only he could feel. I had asked if he was all right, and he had smiled, too quickly, and said he was fine. But now, in this moment, I realized this was what he had been holding back. This desire, this plea for connection, was his storm. And here I was, caught in the center of it with him. My body tensed, not with rejection, but with the enormity of what he was asking. Because it wasn't just physical. It was a call to strip away the layers of safety I had worn, to reveal myself without the armor of certainty. My breath trembled as I whispered, I don't know if I can be what you're asking for. His face softened, the vulnerability in his gaze deepening. He lowered his forehead to mine again, his voice barely audible. I'm not asking for someone else. I'm asking for you, all of you. The words pierced me, opening something I had kept closed. My eyes stung with tears I didn't expect, a fragile mix of longing and fear. Because I wanted that too, I wanted him to see every part of me, even the hidden corners I had been too cautious to share. And yet, just as the distance between us began to dissolve, I felt the weight of the choice pressing harder. If I let go, there would be no returning to what was safe. We would step into a new terrain, uncertain and untested. My heart raced, my body trembling, as his lips hovered dangerously close to mine. The air seemed to thicken, heavy with everything unsaid. And in that suspended breath, I realized the next moment could change everything. The closeness between us was unbearable, not because I wanted to escape, but because I feared what might spill out if I stayed. My lips trembled with the weight of words I had never spoken, truths I had buried under years of compromise. I wanted to tell him that I, too, had longed for something more, something beyond routine, beyond the safety of predictability. But to say it aloud felt like opening a door I wasn't sure either of us could close again. Then, as if sensing my hesitation, he pulled back ever so slightly. His eyes searched mine, not with frustration but with a quiet ache. That was when I realized, he wasn't afraid of me saying no. He was afraid of me staying silent. And silence, I knew, had been the slow thief in our marriage. Memories collided in me, his long nights at work, the moments when I pretended not to notice his exhaustion, the times when I wanted to reach for him but held back, telling myself it wasn't the right moment. How many not right moments had stolen years from us? The twist struck me then, not in his actions, but in my own heart. I wasn't just scared of losing the comfort of what we had. I was terrified of admitting that I wanted more than comfort. That I wanted passion, risk, renewal. That I was no longer satisfied with being the woman who made life easy, who smoothed edges, who kept the peace. He pressed his lips against my temple, tender, reverent, but unsteady. "I don't want this to push you away," he murmured. I couldn't bear that. His vulnerability cut through me. Because what he didn't know was that I had once thought of walking away myself, not from him, but from the quiet suffocation of a love that had forgotten its fire. And I had stayed, hoping, waiting for a spark. Now, here it was, in his trembling hands. The room seemed to pulse with everything unspoken. My nails dug lightly into the sheet, my body torn between surrender and confession. Should I admit that I had almost given up? That his desire for something new was not frightening me, but saving me? I opened my mouth, ready to speak, but the words caught in my throat. Because once I said them, there would be no return to silence. And for the first time in years, I wasn't sure if silence would be the safer choice. The silence broke, not with a grand declaration, but with a trembling breath. My voice came soft, almost fragile, but it carried the weight of years. "I thought I had already lost you," I whispered. His eyes widened, confusion clouding them, but I pressed on before fear could silence me again. Not in body, but in spirit. The way we stopped reaching for each other. The way we let routine take the place of passion. There were nights I lay beside you, wondering if this was all we had left. My throat tightened. I almost gave up on us. The words hung heavy, raw and dangerous, but freeing. His grip on me faltered, as though my confession had struck something deep within him. For a long moment, he said nothing. His breath shook, his forehead pressed hard against mine, and I feared the truth had broken him. Then he exhaled, ragged and unsteady. "I thought I was the only one," he murmured. His voice cracked, carrying more pain than I had ever heard from him. "I've been afraid for so long. Afraid you'd see how small I'd become. How I buried everything I wanted because I didn't know how to ask without losing you." His hands tightened, trembling against me. "I didn't want safe. I wanted you. All of you." Tears slid unbidden down my cheeks, and for the first time in years, I didn't hide them. The distance between us dissolved, not in passion but in truth. We had both been silent, both starving in the middle of plenty. And now, here we were, two souls stripped bare, finally daring to speak. The climax was not the act itself, but the breaking open of our silence. In his eyes, I saw not only desire, but relief. In mine, he saw not only fear, but fire. And together, in that fragile, trembling space, we chose something terrifyingly simple: honesty. The twist was not that he wanted something new. It was that we both did, only neither of us had dared to admit it. When his lips finally touched mine, it was not with urgency but with reverence, as though sealing a vow. A vow to stop hiding. To love with risk. To speak before silence stole more from us. And in that kiss, I felt it, the beginning of a marriage reborn. When the kiss broke, the room was still, as though even the walls were holding their breath. We lay there, not in a rush to move, not in a rush to speak. The truth had already been spoken, and now there was nothing left to hide behind. For the first time in a long time, I looked at my husband not through the lens of years or duty, but through the fragile clarity of this moment. His eyes were damp, his hands still trembling, but there was something new there too, something lighter, freer. The man I had fallen in love with so many years ago was still here, but now I saw him fully, without the silence, without the masks. He brushed a strand of hair from my cheek and smiled, not a perfect smile, but one born of exhaustion, relief, and a promise to try. "We don't have to know what comes next," he whispered. "We just have to keep choosing each other." Those words became our quiet resolution. We didn't need fireworks or grand gestures. What we needed was this: honesty, presence, and the courage to step into the unknown together. The fear hadn't vanished, but it no longer controlled us. It had given way to something deeper: trust. As the lamp's glow dimmed against the early edges of dawn, I realized we had not simply rediscovered passion. We had rediscovered each other. The silence that once stood between us was gone, replaced by a fragile but living thread of connection. And maybe that was what love was always meant to be: not safe, not predictable, but alive. We closed our eyes, still wrapped in each other's arms, and for the first time in a long while, I felt at peace. Not because everything was fixed, but because everything was real. And in that quiet, I understood, the most daring thing we could do was not to try something new in the body, but to try something new in the heart. Love doesn't die in silence, it is reborn in the courage to speak.